Okay, we are continuing in Shmuel Aleph, and we're in the midst of going through a piece from Rabbi Tzadok Kohen. I don't think we have any more of the handouts, however. I gave them out to you yesterday. I think that's all I have. And he's talking about the idea of the Pekida, of what does it mean to remember. And we said that remembering means ushering in a new era. We discussed yesterday why Amalek has to be obliterated, because they represent the ultimate anti-purpose of the world. So we're on the second page of the 4 pages, page 32 on the right side, and this was the job of Shul HaMelech. So interesting how we understand what does the word Shul mean. So if you're on page 32, we're skipping around now. On the right-hand column, a little more than halfway down the page, you see where it's underlined. And we're going to see what the word Shul has to do with his name. So what does the word Shul mean? And so it was in the beginning of the reign of King Shul, that his kingdom was She'ula biyado, was borrowed in his hand. Shul comes from the word borrowing. And Shul borrowed, we will see what exactly he borrowed. He borrowed methodologies, as his kingdom was before that of David HaMelech. Continuing with the underlines, Dugmas bias Elio shugam kemisar de Binyamin, similar to the coming of Elio, who also was from a descendant of Binyamin, which is not so simple to understand how he's a descendant of Binyamin. If Elio is Pinchas and Pinchas was a Kohen, it's hard to understand how he comes from Binyamin, maybe from the mother's side. But still, when Elio will come, Lifnei Bias Ben David Bimhera B'Yameinu. It's a tough acronym there. Before the coming of David HaMelech. Same idea. Elio comes before the Mashiach Ben David. And similarly, Elio did not taste the taste of sin, and that's why he lived forever, as what Chazal say, Elio shelo chata, etc., etc. So the same thing, so too is al Shul. So it is on Shul. In other words, we're comparing Shul and Elio Hanavi in this way, that they're from Shevet Binyamin, and also they are without sin. The B'tchilas Malko, now we understand why. When we learned, if you recall in the beginning of Shul, it says Hoya Keben Shana. Remember, it said he was a king for a year. He was a year old when he was king. Doesn't mean he was a year old, but what Shlo Tam Tam Chet, he never tasted sin. Just like a 1-year-old hasn't sinned, so he hasn't sinned either. And you need someone like that to take on Amalek. Hashem already left from him all the forces of evil, and therefore he has a mitzvah to now destroy and obliterate it to the root. Binyamin ben Yosef, whom the acronyms are killers, and Binyamin, who was the son of Yosef, he was from the 4 that the Torah tells us, who only died because of the advice of the snake, meaning to say, only because the primordial snake, after causing the first man to sin, always leaves some kind of residue of some kind of taiva that a person can never get rid of. And it's not necessarily bad, because if we didn't have any taiva, we wouldn't have any children either. So therefore, but otherwise, besides that, he was totally clean from any sin. So now we turn to the next column, where you see the next set of underlines. And Elio was totally clean. He is, so to speak, the angel of the covenant. He turned into an angel. He left the form of a person. As long as he was in the form of a person, what kind of behavior did he manifest? He was very jealous for the covenant, meaning the covenant of circumcision. V'toein neged b'nei Yisrael azvu b'Yisrael. And he complained and criticized the Jews who left the covenant of Hashem. Now, It's that which the bris is symbolic of, obviously. Certainly it means morality and things like that. V'shorish kitrug Amalek, and what is the root of Amalek's prosecution against the Jews? Shu shorish hara, since he is the root of evil. Hu gam ken gozek v'shomer chazal chotech milosem. We know the rabbis give us an analogy that they said they did it, but if they did it or not doesn't really matter. They took a pile of foreskins and made a pile of foreskins and threw it up in the air and tell the Jews, Tu masha b'charta, take what you like. In other words, they represent going against the covenant of that. And that's, Amalek is the total opposite of that. Going down to the next underlines, V'tainas Amalek, and what was Amalek's claim? What does he mean? Kigam Yisrael ein yakim l'gamri, that even the Jews aren't totally clean from sin. Da'afilu chashit shebachasidim, even the holiest of the holies still has some part of tava, some kind of lust that still comes from the original snake. So in other words, Amalek is saying that, we can still they can still affect the world and still overpower the tzaddikim. Mashiach ben Yosef, Hamocha Zecher Amalek, but the role of the Mashiach, the descendant of Yosef, he will obliterate the memory of Amalek. Why? Shianaki Lagamri, that he will be totally clean, but still sof nereg alidei Gog uMagog. At the end of the day, he will get killed in the war of Gog and Magog. Okay, there's all kinds of stuff beyond what we need to go into detail. The main thing we're getting from this is you need someone who's totally clean from sin to destroy Amalek, as we'll see shortly. But that is a critical factor that you have to have. And that's why Shul was the one who was picked for this, because he was totally clean from sin. So it was the perfect candidate, and now as we move on with Rav Tzadok, we will see where the downfall comes. So now we turn to the next column. We're now on page 33, where I got the check mark over there by the underlines. There's two ways to defeat an enemy. Okay, and this we're getting to concepts that we've seen in the Tanya on the Shabbos morning. One is, I'm sorry the print is so bad, but that's all I have. Le'askafia, either there's a concept of askafia, to be kofa. It's the Aramaic of the word kofa, which means to suppress, to push down, to throttle. Dugmas Eliyahu, an example of that is Elijah the prophet, Mashiach ben Yosef, that's one way, which will explain this. Oli hisafcha, or to, instead of suppress it, take it and turn it upside down, turn it around. Dugmas Mashiach ben David, that is the model of the Mashiach ben David model. Yodo lislabein, that through that the forces of the opposite will be whitened. After we kill the forces of evil, as it were, the blood goes out, as it were, and it becomes white and pure. Now here's the problem. Here becomes the crux of the problem, which will also be the focus of this morning's Parsha class at 9:15. So what does it mean that Shul had a borrowed kingdom? So what we're going to see is that a person has to be true to his nature and to what his role in life is. And one should not copy other people's roles and other people's methodologies. It's a very, very important yesod. Hashem gives everybody the talents that they have to do the job that they're supposed to do. And one of the biggest challenges is not to see what other people are doing and think if other people are doing, then that's what I should be doing. Now, of course, we're not talking about standard Jewish practice. If you see other people davening in a minyan, yes, you should want to role model davening in a minyan. Certainly, there's what to learn from role models. But then when we get to the particular aspect of what particular strengths that you have to show, then that's already a difference. There's Avram Avinu, for example, he embodied chesed. That means everything he did was with a twist of chesed. That means the Torah that he gave was a Torah of chesed, as opposed to the Torah of Gvura. There was more emphasis on chesed. There's certain people who are better teachers than others. better, who can show kindness through their Torah more so than other virtues. Others can show other virtues more through their Torah. And everyone has to use the virtues that they were given. So Shaul HaMelech, we'll see, was given a certain type of virtue and a certain type of task. He should have been true to what his nature was. And since he wasn't true to his nature, this is where the downfall is. So where do you see this? You see this in his name. His name is Shaul. Shaul means to borrow. He borrowed somebody else's techniques that he should not have been using. That's what we're going to see over here. And this is very practical, because we all shouldn't, copy other people's types of service to Hashem if it's not our unique type of service to Hashem. So let's see. He explains. Next set of underlines. Shaul, shahavle hamalcha she'ula. Shaul, his kingdom was a borrowed kingdom. Ki ein ze madrega so be'etzem. That wasn't his level. Rak madregas David. It was the level of David. Chashav gam bazel ishtamish bekelim shulim. He thought he could use borrowed utensils. Now we're going to explain how. So a person what kind of attribute do you think goes to the person who hasn't sinned at all? You got two ways of dealing with Amalek, right? Or with evil. One is aschafia. One is to totally squash it, totally suppress it, totally destroy it. Or the other aspect, that's one way of dealing with the Yetzer Hara. The other way is to take that Yetzer Hara and turn it around and have them work for you. For example, let's say there's a Yetzer Hara. We're going to get to this in the Mesilas Yesharim this week. Baruch Hashem, I'm very well prepared in advance this week. I know almost everything I'm going to say this week, as opposed to the day before. So, how do you deal with your taiva? How do you deal with your lusts? Everyone has lust. How do you deal with lust? So one way is, let's say, as it manifests itself in eating a lot. So one way is the great holy people would fast. That's all. You fast. You eat barely enough to live. Now that is totally suppressing and vanquishing and destroying that Yetzer Hara. The less you eat, the less you're inclined to want to eat. You can kill that appetite. Okay, and that will work. It will work. Now we're not suggesting it for everybody. But certainly that will work. Or if you're not totally fasting, not eating any foods that really give you calories, like lots of vegetables, lots of fruits, lots of lean meat, which is a very unexciting diet. And if you live on that for a while, you'll totally destroy that sweet tooth as well. That's one method. On the other hand, why don't we take that eating of food and in a small way channel it, instead of being something that satisfies my animalistic desires, to be something to be used as a tool in service to God. And therefore, when would that happen? On Shabbos. On Shabbos, it's a mitzvah to eat. You have to eat on Shabbos. You're not allowed to fast on Shabbos. But you take very little bit. You could also take a very little bit of a tasty piece of pastry, very little bit, and say, I'm eating this for the sake of Hashem. Because to know how much Hashem loves me, to taste how good it is, to feel His big embracing hug even upon my palate, and therefore to turn around after having a little piece of cake and singing for half an hour's miros, thanking Him for that. That is called ishapkil. That's called turning it around. That's called taking that drive and making it work for you. Okay? That's a much more difficult task. Okay? But those are the two ways of dealing with the Yetzer Hara. And in a perfect world, we first use step 1, and then we go to step 2. And that's how we should really play it out in the 7 days of the week. Meaning in the 6 days of the week, we eat minimally. I'm talking if you're a tzaddik now. I'm not saying everybody can do this. If you're a tzaddik, you barely touch your food, just enough to stay healthy. And the tzaddikim, they don't have to worry about those rules of health. They live on a different level anyway. But mom is just enough, and a person can really live on very little. Much less than what we're accustomed to. But really, to always go around, as the Rambam says, never to feel full. Always only, fill, 2/3, 3/4 of your plate, and you walk away from the meal still hungry. That's the way it should be, right? And really eat very little the whole week. Then comes Shabbos, to eat more, not to stuff yourself, but to eat in a way to really enjoy yourself, the food, on a minimalistic way still, but it's a whole different type of food. It's all a covered Shabbos. That would be the optimal way. I'm just giving you one example. There's so many examples in terms of midos and things like that. But so that's, and every midah can be done that way, as we're going to learn tonight in the Rambam. It's all tying in here. But that's enough that we need for what's over here. So now, a person with Shaul's midos, which one of the two attributes should he be working on? The man who has never sinned, should he be using the one of turning sin into mitzvah, or should he be suppressing? So he's going to say like this. Below to have a kalal. So since he has no chet at all, hu la'achve, it's to suppress, to squish, to destroy. V'rak midas David HaMelech, shehekim ola shel tshuva. Only David HaMelech, who established this concept of doing tshuva, because he sinned and he had to do tshuva. Tshuva, part of tshuva is this ishapcha, is to turn it over. Tshuva means I've used something within my spiritual, my characteristics in a negative way. So tshuva does not, at the end of the day, mean totally destroying the negative part of you, but to turn it around and make it being a useful way, doing the useful way. And therefore, the one who's the Baal Tshuva has to finally come to the level of Hishapcha, to turn it upside down, to turn it around. Because you've already used it, you've already got the cat out of the bag the wrong way. You already know what it means to use it. Now if you've used it, now use it in a healthy way. So that's David HaMelech's. So you hear now. Shaul's midah was ischapye, to be kofef, to suppress and destroy. David's midah was ischapye, to take what's there and to find a way to channel it properly. Now, based on what we said already earlier with Rav Tzadok, that what did we say about the 70 nations of the world? The 70 nations of the world all have an attribute. They all have an attribute. They take, of the 70 manifestations of attributes, they just happen to use them the wrong way. So if we just get them using the right way, they still have utility in this world. And therefore the other 70 nations do not need to be destroyed. Only Amalek needs to be destroyed, as we said yesterday, because Amalek represents being bad just to be bad, but they have no virtue unto themselves. So just to be bad, so there's nothing good, there's nothing to turn around. If you know, some nations are very immoral, well, that comes from taking chesed and using it the wrong way. Turn around an immoral person, he could be a kind person. It takes a lot of work, but you've got a positive quality that's being put in the wrong place. But Amalek's negative quality is just to be bad, to not want the purpose of God to be realized in the world. That cannot be turned around to be good. That must be obliterated. So you need one tzaddik to obliterate Amalek, and once they're obliterated, their influence in the other 70 nations is finished. Amalek is Reish Goyim. It's called the head of the other nations. The other nations have qualities. Amalek says, take your qualities and use it to go against God's purpose of the world. So now when you get rid of Amalek, who's telling people all these Narishkeiten, now they got to, so what are we going to do with our quality? Then comes the Mashiach ben David, comes David Melech and says, now I'm going to show you the Jewish way of using this quality. I'm going to show you the Jewish way of dealing with honor. Not that it's self-serving for yourself, but instead of giving honor for yourself, give honor to other people. Give honor to God. Give honor to the Torah. And so you don't have a Amalek saying, no, just do things for the bad. Right? Well, then you don't have to contend with that. Now we can take their attributes and turn it upside down. You understand the two-step process over here? And that's what's going to happen in the future. When the Mashiach ben Yosef has to destroy, that's really what you have over here. You have a bunch of non-Jews in this world who don't know anything except what public opinion says. They have no minds of their own. Clearly they have no minds of their own. Right? And therefore they do what is out there. What's meant to be done. Now who are the trendsetters? Right? So that's Amalek. Amalek are the trendsetters who have only, has an anti-purpose of God's purpose in this world. That's all. They're all just a bunch of followers. Believe me, if Lady Gaga would get up and say she's becoming an Orthodox Jew and she's going to marry a Goyish Tom Cruise, and Tom Cruise says he's going to become a Jew, he's going to put on tefillin and all this, and now they popularize that, there'll be idiots who will follow them. Not idiots, but rather people who have no opinion of their own. And they can be trained, the good, the one, whatever, to use their attribute the right way. It's all how you package and how you market it. I mean, putting on tefillin is no less bizarre than tattooing yourself. Right? No different than putting these ringlets in your nose, stomach, and your belly button, and your tongue, which is totally crazy. Islam is crazy. It's not a normal person to do this. But you so are thirsting to have acceptance. You have to do what's normal. So if Meshugoyim in the front do what's normal, then that becomes normal. So I'm going to ask you, putting on tefillin any less normal from that perspective? So you see they're ready to do crazy things. Judaism doesn't tell you that. Can you imagine if 20 years ago a secular person walked into a Jewish class and say, listen, part of a ritual, being a Jew, is to take a ring and cut your tongue and put it in your tongue. And go like that, and put 5 in your belly button and 3 in your eyebrows, and that's the will of God. They say this is crazy, this is stupid, this is archaic. Right? Comes a bunch of Meshugoyim who live somewhere in Paris to say that's cool, and all of a sudden they're running after doing that. And you're wondering, why is God doing such a crazy world? But what is He doing? Because when the Mashiach comes, then people will follow that. But you've got to get rid of Amalek first. There's those people who don't want God in this world, and they'll do everything anti-God, and people will follow it, and they'll use their qualities that are neutral in a way that can be in a negative way. So all you have to do is get rid of that evil quality of Amalek, and then if you have an inspiring Jewish leader who says, no, you can take your qualities and use it to serve God, and that's cool, then all of a sudden the world will do that. So those are 2 steps. Now, so Shul had to do step 1, and he had to be faithful to his personality. His personality. Remember, he's a descendant of Binyamin. That's the Yosef personality. The Yosef personality from Rachel is tznius, where you're doing everything. You don't need people to see what you're doing so much. You don't need people to copy what you're doing, and you're free of sin. Means say, I resist all evil. I destroy all evil. And that, I've no sin. He never sinned. Who's the one to destroy evil? The one who's never touched sin. And that's what he was supposed to do with Amalek, and that's why you totally destroy Amalek. We don't even want any memorabilia from Marilyn Monroe or that kind of a world. That even memorabilia brings back nostalgic ideas. People wanting to go back. And therefore, totally get rid of Amalek. We'll never know they ever existed. Not that they're in a museum somewhere that maybe one day they'll come back to life. Totally obliterate any vestige of wanting to do anything in this world that means totally against God for no other purpose. And that was he had to do. So now, he's saying, so in the 5th line from the bottom on that 3rd column. So if that's only Varak Minas David HaMelech, was to do tshuva. V'chein Malchus Beis David, and also the kingdom of David. Shiavi l'taken gam rishe kol hadaros, who's there to perfect and repair all the wickedness of all the generations. V'dahachatoyim shekashanim kashel yalbinus, quoting the pasuk in Tehillim that says, and their sins that are red will turn to white. Adeshi Slav and Yetzer Hara, that will make the Yetzer Hara white. And that's what it means in the future when it says, the Gemara in Sukkah says that in the future they will take the Yetzer Hara and shecht it and slaughter it before everybody. What does shechita mean? Shechita means you're taking out all the blood, you're taking out all the red, and the red is gone. And what's good when the red is gone? Just comes the white. In other words, the taiva, the drives remain, but instead of directed in a bad way, they'll be directed in a good way. Moving on to the final column on page 33, the left-hand column, going to the underlines. Avo mitzad zeh goram hispashtus midas hachesed lios rachman al hachzorim. But what Shul did, his mistake was when he used that attribute incorrectly. In other words, David HaMelech is to try to pull out the good that is in the evil. So Shul used David's means instead of his own means. And what's the problem? So, and on the one hand, it could be good, that you can pull out the good qualities. Sometimes there's a time to have Rachmanis. We should have Rachmanis on the non-Jews of the world, because they all have a purpose in this world, and it's our job to make sure that every non-Jew reaches his purpose. But that's only going to happen when the anti-God people are out of the way, and the non-Jews, all the non-Jews. And you see this with some non-Jews. They are religious non-Jews, and they find it their pleasure to help Jews. You go down to Texas, go to those areas, so they want to support the Jews. I don't know if it's totally Shem Shemaim, but these are the chosen people, and what can we do to help the chosen people? So if you turn them around the right way, that's that good spark. But the problem is, this is what caused his hispashus, spreading the attribute of kindness, to be merciful on cruel people. V'lachmal al Agag, and to have mercy on Agag, who was the king of Amalek. And that's why it was V'shol ba'achas. That's why Shol made one mistake. He wasn't able to get out of it. He lost his kingship. Why? Because he wasn't using the tools he was supposed to use. Then it became retroactively clarified that his kingdom was a borrowed kingdom. It's not his level of a king ruling over the world. Now, on the other hand, David HaMelech, he also was born very ruddy looking, just like Esau. When he came out from his mother, it was like a prototype of how Esau came out from his mother. Esau was the most wicked person who ever lived. And he had hands that were very sharp, that were able to do what has to be done. In other words, you saw he killed a lot of people. But they say he had pretty eyes. What does it mean he had pretty eyes? So it means she'ein osa ela midas sanhedrin. Pretty eyes means he knew how to look. He knew where to look and to know where to look for guidance. That's what pretty eyes means. And therefore he never did anything without asking the Sanhedrin, the chief court of Jewish law, for any important decisions. Since they have the power of turning things over, so he followed that power. Now, we come to the underlines, and here's the point. This is the perfection of a kingdom of David HaMelech. Shia Shoshan, it's like a rose. What do you know about a rose? A rose, it can be red and can be white. It can be turned from red to white. Every color in the right place. That can be the white. The leis lay migarmei klum, because the rule of a king is he has nothing of his own. Rakma shemashpim law, but rather what they influence him, meaning the Sanhedrin. And that's what David HaMelech was. David, I'm not sure. Osa Atzmo, I'm not sure. Eino Osa Midas Atzmo Klum. He never did anything on his own decision. Only what Hashem illuminated him through the light of the Torah via the Sanhedrin. So David HaMelech was smart enough to know that I had to take orders from above. And only what above says. So yes, David HaMelech had a nature to kill and all those kinds of things, and he did. He killed millions and millions of enemies of the Jews, but only with the permission of the Sanhedrin. He never made a decision on his own. But Shaul thought on his own to be smarter than what the prophet himself said. And the Torah commands us, the prophet said, Hashem says, we've got to wipe out Amalek totally. Now here comes the problem. Now you're going to see, Hashem always sets up a test for a tzaddik. You're going to see in another page or so, he says this specifically. You know, when a tzaddik falls in a mistake, this is something that me and you are falling in. This is something Hashem is really setting up the pieces on the board in a way that's setting him up for failure. And you've got to pull every ounce of everything you got to not fail. So what's going on? So Avalhu Baruch HaKodesh, he saw with his divine inspiration. Remember, Shul, this also now explains why did Shul have to be a shtickle navi. Why in the beginning of the story, Shmuel sent him to be with the prophets, to have a little bit of prophecy. Why do you got to bother the king with the prophecy? So there's many reasons, but one, that becomes a tool, that becomes a test for him. Now that he can get prophetic vision, he began to see certain things that would make it a challenge for him to fulfill this job. Because he saw Shabo here, he saw in Agag there was some kind of spiritual spark that would in the future come out. As we know, the Gemara says, the Gemara tells us that we're descendants of Haman the wicked, were teaching Torah publicly in Bnei Brak. Right? And it was that Shmuel Bar Shilas, I believe, was a great, great teacher who would be a great teacher of the Jewish people. And that was a descendant from Haman, which is a descendant of Agag. So he saw that there's going to be great Torah teaching coming from Amalek. So that means there's something good in Amalek. So how can I destroy all of Amalek? We see by Moshe Rabbeinu, for example, when he decided, should he kill that Egyptian who was beating up on the Jew? It says, Vayifen Kovako. He looked this way and he looked that way. So the simple meaning is he looked to see if anybody was watching him. But Chazal say, Amr Chazal, Shirah She'em, etc., Mizaro, Atzok. He looked to see the future of this Egyptian. Is it possible that maybe if I don't kill him, that maybe 10, 15, 20 generations, somebody good is going to come out of that? Maybe I shouldn't kill him now. He looked and said, nothing good's going to come out of this guy. Okay, he killed him. Okay, there's a lot of killing. The guy was killing another Jew. But the question is, maybe I should just stop and not kill him. But no, nothing good was going to go on. I should just kill him. So that's what it was saying as well. And to give some other examples. But Shaul sees that there's going to be someone good coming out of it. And it's a true vision. Indeed, that's what happened. So now, what am I going to do? There's a true vision. There's something good yet to take out of Amalek. Skip the next underlines. But now we understand how we learned 2 days ago in the Rambam, when we have to paskin shilas, we have to decide case of Jewish law, who makes the final decision? Only the rabbis, only the Sanhedrin using their mind. If a prophet walks into a Sanhedrin and says, I see from divine inspiration that the law should be this, we kill the prophet because he's meddling in an area he's not allowed to get involved in. Even if he says, I see it clearly in the future, this should be the law. We're not allowed to operate. The Torah is not in the heaven anymore. The Torah is down here. And therefore, a Sanhedrin, hahorgim b'mishpat Torah, they kill based on the laws of the Torah. We don't care what comes from the guy. When a Sanhedrin has to decide a case, they don't look into other factors. If there's a clear violation of the Torah and the Torah is very clear what to do, you have to follow what the Torah says. Even let's say a woman does a crime that she has to get a capital punishment according to the Torah, and they say that she's pregnant. You might say, well, let's have mercy on her. Let's let her live long enough till she gives birth to the baby. And he goes, what did the baby do to deserve that? The answer is the Torah law is once you make a decision, the implementation must be immediate. There's no room for Rachmanis. Even if a prophet would get up and say, that baby will be the Mashiach. Doesn't matter. The Torah law goes only what we have in this world. Even though the embryo didn't sin, we don't take that into consideration. Why? Kivan shedina al pi haTorah lahamisa ushalo lahamti ulavara miyad. Since the law of the Torah is to kill, not to delay, burn out the evil immediately. All we have is Hashem's mitzvah and Hashem's Torah. Now, the Torah also tells you when to have mercy. The Torah also, don't say the Torah is not merciful. The Torah says when there is time to be merciful, when there's time not to be merciful. This is not one of those times. When you're doing what is done according to the Torah, you don't concern yourself with what you see with prophetic vision that may be the opposite. That's what it says in Chazal, Al tischachem harbe. Don't be too smart. It says you shouldn't be too smart. Who's that referencing to? Lama. What's print is so bad? Lama teshumam, whatever. Lama teshumim. Why should you destroy whatever? That's what Shaul should have done. It says when he was debating what to do, should he follow the will of Hashem, etc. It says 2 lines from the bottom. It says Vayorav Banachal, when he had that debate in his mind in the valley. Is it fair? Is it morally right? Killing people that didn't do anything wrong. It says, Ki chashav yesh eish lashes on my furniture. He figured there is a rule in the Torah. There's a rule in the Torah that at certain times you're allowed to take emergency measures. Interesting. We got to know all the things that were playing through his mind over here. There's a pasuk that says, Ki eish lashes lashem hefer tersecha. There's time to act for God to nullify the Torah. The Torah says at certain times, an emergency, temporary message, you may nullify the Torah. Classic example. According to the Torah, you are prohibited to write any element of the oral law. It's totally prohibited. So what are we doing reading out of this sefer right now? We're doing reading out of a Gemara. The rabbi said, God, you're right, and the truth is that's the law. We're not changing the law, but temporarily, while the Romans are trying to kill us, and we have no time to focus and concentrate on our Torah learning, if we're going to have to remember everything, there's going to be nothing left of your Torah. So we're going to sorrowfully write it down, hoping for a better time in the world where we will be able to remember things, and Hashem, forgive us, but this has to happen or there'll be no Torah left. Now that was a Bezdin making that decision, not a single individual, and there's a time where they're allowed to do this. Eliyahu, when he had to destroy the false prophets, said we're going to meet at Mount Carmel, and once and for all we're going to see whose animal sacrifice is accepted, even though it's against the Torah to bring an animal offering outside Jerusalem. But you know what? Hashem said, but there's a one-time deal. But you have to know when to do this. And he figured, he figured, well, as royalty, he has to make those decisions. We're moving on to the next page. He figured this was a time to act for Hashem and not totally destroy Amalek. Even though it's a command, now is not the time. Shaul wasn't saying, no, there's a mitzvah, you got to totally annihilate Amalek. Okay, but you know what? Maybe we'll just temporarily put it on hold. Because I see this Agag, somebody good's going to come from him. So I'll temporarily let him live long enough, that he'll have a child, then we'll kill him. So that's what we were figuring. Now we're going to the underlines, but that can't be, because that has to be decided under Torah law, not by spiritual influence. That was his test. But we're not totally finished with the test. Shelo yeh tzaddik harbi. He shouldn't be too much of a tzaddik. V'hatzadik hu yesod olam. A tzaddik is the foundation of the world. V'chafetz b'kiyam olam. And he wants the world to be maintained. V'lo v'ashchasa, not to destroy it. Tzaddik wants the world to be around. It's hard for the tzaddik to kill somebody totally annihilated. So that's his challenge here. We'll see more. But the challenge is, you understand now why he was using the wrong tools? David HaMelech is the kind of guy who will take an evil one and turn him around. That's his tool. Shaul's tool is just destroy evil. Finished. That was the man for it. The man who's supposed to be such a tzaddik that he won't consider it evil at all. Told, just like when an Aveir comes, he doesn't consider it all, doesn't entertain it at all. He can't entertain Amalek at all. But then he started putting on David's clothing. So, well, I see in the future some good's going to come out of this, so maybe I should have a little bit of mercy right now, just temporarily. It's an emergency measure. We'll just have a little bit of mercy, because after all, we need someone who's going to be teaching Torah publicly for the Jews. It's going to come from Amalek. There might be something good coming from Amalek. The prophet said there's nothing good coming from Amalek. Get rid of them. You have a different prophecy? Too bad. Even if it was a correct prophecy. Indeed, that's what happened. We have to resolve all this still. Now, next paragraph. So how do we maintain the world? As we said in the beginning, by totally obliterating Amalek. As we said in the beginning, the first words that Shmuel said to Shaul was pakadati. Hashem said, I remembered. And we said pakadati means a new era. It's a specific supervision to maintain the world. When Hashem supervised the world, Varas Amalek, and he sees Amalek, and Hashem determines Magia Mishpat Hashkoch Alahavido Shebazei Yiskai Malugami. Hashem says, I want the world to be maintained. I want the world plan to be continued. And the way we continue the world plan is we got to wipe up Amalek, and now is the time. And that was the command, and that was the prophecy. But on the other hand, V'shol shehirgish yitzias nefesh achas miyisrael mibnei beiso kinisko. But Shaul gets this prophetic vision that means if you totally obliterate him, it's almost like those movies, where they try to change the future. There's like one of these. It's like you're changing the future. Hashem is showing him the future. So he's saying what's going to happen is it means I'm killing this rabbi who'll never come into the world, who'll teach Torah to Jews. Right? So that was running through his mind. And now you come up with a religious, with the thumb up. There's a chazal says if you save one Jewish soul, it's like you saved the whole world. It's such a statement. So I'm saving one soul. It's from Shmuel Bar Shilas. It could be a rabbi in the Gemara who's one of the greatest educators in Jewish history. Right? So how can I kill him? Right? So what does Hashem want? Hashem wants the world to be maintained, right? How's the world maintained? Get rid of Amalek. Wait a minute, you get rid of Amalek, but you don't have a good teacher. What's it going to help to get rid of Amalek? So we need the world to be maintained. And if you save one Jewish soul, it's like you save the whole world. It's like you're maintaining the world. So I'm maintaining the world. So it wasn't for naught, for no reason, that this mercy welled up in his heart. Who believed Kol Yisrael, and the hearts of all the Jews. Shaul and the people had mercy. Now, so that was one aspect. So we're going to go through all the. It's not just one. It's a preponderance of factors that's weighing on Shaul's mind over here. Okay, so you got a huge one here. He sees in the future greatness, great continent. Really, without Shmuel Bar Shilas, at that point in Jewish history would have been in great peril if it would have even continued without a good educational system. So he said, if I get rid of this agot, I'm going to get rid of him. Now he says a second factor. Yes?
If he saw that greatness, wouldn't he have also seen the opposite of the Haman coming from him?
Yeah, but Haman gets killed. Haman gets killed.
He saw greatness.
He saw it all.
He saw the evil coming. So
yeah, but he saw that Haman. He probably saw Haman got killed in the Purim story too. That was a good ending. Right? And Hashem only lets you see what you see. Right? Only lets you see what you see. But that was okay. Well, at the end of the day, we turned out pretty good from the Haman story. The Haman story, the Jews accepted the Torah willingly, something they didn't do before.
I guess the point is, if you could see the good, you could also see the bad.
Well, no, Hashem only lets a prophet see what he wants him to see. He didn't see the Romans killing millions of Jews that came from Amalek either. He lets you see certain things. Didn't see Hitler. Right? Now, one more thing. It's going to talk about Agag. When they brought him out to death, it was by Madonos. And there's a lot of discussion what that word means. The Targum Yonasan Kad Mefankin. He was a Mefunik. Which means what? In other words, he looked very one that one could have mercy on. You look at these pictures, people have a lot of Rachmanis on. You only see an old man and his mamish pleading, and your heart goes out for him. Say, Amalek, the two-faced of Amalek, can make themselves feel so needs mercy and so forlorn. And I have Rachmanis on that guy, right? So Madonos means he looked so fragile. When they brought the king out, it's like your heart went out for this little tzaddik of a guy. How can I kill this guy? Right? It was hard to humanly not have compassion for him. And the soil it was a big test for him not to have mercy on him. It also was divinely ordained. And the mercy came out of him that he looked like to be one to have merciful, and he also had that spark to coming out. Val came there from the beginning of the command when we learned to read don't have mercy on him. Because he knew that Agag would arouse compassions. That when he's about to get totally destroyed, he's able to put on a good shtick, this guy to look like, oh, you can't kill me, you can't do this, please have mercy, I'll be better, blah, 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 blah. And you talk and feel sad for the guy. So these were two factors that were brought into play. Okay, we got to stop, and for sure next week we will finish this piece. We didn't get to put all the pieces together yet, but we got a lot of the pieces together here, and we'll see ultimately what Shaul's downfall came from.